Okay, battery's out, we're on the cart. And then to take the top off, you got a 10 here, 10 here, 10 here. And on the other side, 10 here, 10 here. We're gonna buzz those off right here. 1, 2, 3. 4. Oh, one more. 10 right there. And there's our battery. Okay, next step, we're going to pull off these vents. These vent tubes, there's 2 of them. Connects to each battery cell, and then we're going to pull off these black covers. And this is what exposes the cells. You can see each 2 cells are connected, and these cells go negative to positive, so every other one's reversed. So you got a positive, negative, positive, negative, and by running these in series like this is what creates the high voltage. So we're going to pull these off. And we're going to undo all of these bolts and the little bus bars in between, all these nuts that are connecting all the batteries together. There's a row on this side and a row on the other side. And for these vents, all you do is just grab hold of them and they just pop off. And same with this side. Vents are off, so you can see the row, and you have the same covers on this side, so they just pop off. Same thing, and there is your row of nuts that need to come off here on this side also. Okay, these are an 8mm, and all we're going to do is we're going to buzz all these off, take all these off, and then we'll take all the ones off on the other side, and then that'll allow us to test each individual cell. I'm going to use a air ratchet with an 8mm socket. You can see very quick. Okay, I've got all the bolts off, and then these just pull off just like that. You can just move them out of the way. As you can see, these bus bars that connect together, normally these are very corroded. This looks like somebody has been in there cleaning these. Actually pretty clean. So somebody's been in on this battery not very long ago. So we'll take the other side off and then we will start testing voltages. Now that I have this apart, you can see that somebody's been in here. You've got writing on all of these cells from their they've analyzed them all, which is expected from a 2006 Prius. People have probably been in there several times. Okay, we're going to load test these cells. If you remember, it showed when we were testing this in the car on the torque gap, it was showing that block 13 was weak, and so there's 14 blocks. Every 2 cells is 1 block, and these 2 right here would be block 1. Working your way down this way, so block 13 would be these 2 cells right here, and we're going to load test. We're going to load test all the cells to see the condition they're in, but these are the 2 we're going to focus on because this is what it was showing us was weak. And so to load test that, we're going to use I got 2 alligator clips connected to this. It's a 60 watt bulb, headlight lamp out of a car, and you can use anything you want to load test. This is probably drawing about 6 or 7 amps. I'm going to show you how we can load test this. And we're going to do these load tests for 2 minutes and see where each of these cells drop to, and then we're going to write that down and keep track of every one of these cells, and then we can tell which ones are weak and which ones we can continue to use. Okay, I got the voltmeter set to DC, and then I have my stopwatch, and then I've got the negative to the lamp connected to the negative on this first battery cell, and then the positive here that I'll connect right there. And as soon as I touch that, I'm gonna start this timer and watch the voltage. So I'll take note of what the voltage is when I start, and then we're gonna let it go for 2 minutes, and we'll see how much it drops in 2 minutes. Okay, so we'll go ahead and click start. You can see the light is lit up. We're at 7.8 volts, and we'll let it go for 2 minutes and see where we get to. You can watch it slowly drop. The stronger the cell, the slower it drops. There's a minute in, holding really well. 2 minutes, so we're at 0.15. So as you can see, this in 2 minutes with this about a 7 amp draw, this first cell dropped 0.15 of a volt. And so we're going to do the same with all the rest of these, test all the rest of these to see where they drop, and then we'll record all of that on a paper so we can see which ones are weak and which ones are strong. And in a battery that's older like this, they're probably, most of them will probably be a little weak, but that doesn't mean they're bad, and they may last years. So we'll look at it and see which ones would be worth replacing, and then you got to start thinking to yourself, how long am I going to keep the car? Is it worth the money? You can buy refurbished batteries for $1,000 if you want to keep your car for a long time, and they go up from there. Newer batteries probably around $3,000. So, but on a 2006, the car is not even worth that. So we're just going to fix this battery, put it back in, and see how long it lasts. We've had cars that we've replaced these that, you know, it's going on 4 years and we haven't put another cell in, just replaced the bad ones. So you could get several more years out of it, and even if you replace 2 or 3 cells a year, you know, at $30 a cell, that's pretty cheap to keep this moving. So we'll go ahead and test the rest of these, and then I'll show you the results, and then I'll show you the test on the weak one. Okay, here's our results on all the cells here. You can see I got them listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, going back and forth. So our strongest cell is number 1, which was up here, and in 2 minutes we only dropped 1 volt, 0.1 of a volt. So that's really good. We don't normally see that in older batteries like this. You will see that with newer cells, so I would assume that that one is probably a newer cell that somebody put in. This is more accurate. You can see all these numbers are somewhere between 0.12, 13. It's usually probably somewhere in the 15.15 up, and that's what we've got. 0.20 looks like the next weakest. Our weakest one was number 26, which was 0.48. And so this is obviously recharged and it's holding its voltage, but in the load test you can see that it dropped off, cleared to 0.48. So this is definitely a bad cell. This is what's kicking off this one cell right here. You can see I've got it marked here with an X. It's in bank 13, just what the torque app showed, and this is what's kicking off that red triangle, is this one cell. As it gets down to the low voltage, to the lower voltage side of the battery, that's when this cell gets weak. So as long as it stays charged, it's never going to kick off the red triangle, but this is what's doing it, is this one cell. So we're going to replace this one cell, and you can do more testing on these batteries if you want. You can do a 4-minute draw and see what your voltage drop is. To be honest, these batteries are really easy to take in and out. It's really easy to replace these. Doesn't take that long. So I would say this 0.20 is probably about the max you want to let go. If it was anything over this, we would probably do a longer draw and see how fast it drops in that next 2 minutes. So, which we've done. This is fine. These are going to be fine for now. They may last a year, a couple years, but for this older car, I think we'll let these ones go. And we're going to take this battery apart and replace this one cell. And so what you have is you have these 2 bolts, these up here, and then 2 bolts down here that you're going to have to take off. And then on the bottom here, every other one of these cells is held on. If you can see under here, there's 8mm bolts that holds every other cell on, all the way down. And so if it was closer to the number 1, we would just take off as many as we need. We've got to get all the way to 13, so we're going to be taking all these off, and then you've got the same on the other side, which is holding the next one over. So if you see, this first bolt is holding cell number 1. On the other side, the bolt will be on cell number 2, and then you can see we got a bolt here on cell number 3. So it's every other one on this side, and then it's just the opposite on the other side. So you'll have to take both those off, and then this piece comes off, and we can start pulling. These rails come off up here, so you'll have to take these 2 bolts off here and pull these 2 rails off, and then we can just slide the cells out, put the new cell in, and then slide them back. So this, you can pull this if you want to undo all the bolts at the bottom on both sides and leave this bolted together. You can pull the whole battery itself out, all the cells together, tip it up on its end, and then unscrew the end here and pull the batteries out that way. Either way you want to do it. I'm going to leave them in. We've done it both ways. Just make sure that if you're going to do that, that you disconnect this this sensor, and then there'll be sensors on the bottom too. So I just leave it, usually just leave them in, and it works out just fine. Then you're not messing with sensor positions, your temperature sensor positions, or getting the wires pinched or broke, or not putting the back in the right spot. So we'll start with starting to pull off the bolts, and I'll show you that. Okay, we're going to use a 12mm socket on an air gun to take off these 4 bolts. You need to make sure that your battery, if you're just taking the battery out of the car and the car's been running, that it cools down. You want it to cool down for probably 24 hours before you take this apart, because when these cells heat up, they expand, and they can expand a lot, and it's very difficult to not only get it apart, but you'll never get it back together. So they need to cool down for probably a day before you start taking it apart. So first thing we're going to do is just buzz these off. And these bolts hold the rails on. Okay, now we're going to come to this other side. This black piece just pops off, and then we're going to take these two top bolts off. We're going to leave the bottoms. So it's just a 12 open end wrench. You can just loosen those. And then this just pops up out of the way. And you can just move this whole thing off to the side. Okay. And then we're going to pull this front piece off. You can see that it's stuck here and here. Sometimes it just comes off, sometimes you got to pry it. This with the battery cold, it just popped off. Okay, now we're going to come under here and we're going to start undoing this side. These lower bolts, these are 8mm. I'll buzz this side off all the way down to this last one, which looks like it's connected to this one. We need to get to this one. So we'll leave this one bolt in on this side, and then we'll leave the one bolt on this one on the other side. But we'll take the rest of these all off, and that'll allow us to pull the cells out. Okay, we have all the bolts out. As you can see, the cells are loose. Now this first cell has got temperature sensor on it. You can see it right there. These just pop off. Just put them out of the way. And so we want to leave all these cells in order. So we'll just take them off, stack them up till we get back to that back one, and then we'll replace that one. Okay, we're at the middle here, and you can see this one also has a temperature sensor. So we'll pop that one off. So this sensor goes right in the middle, this temperature sensor. So this is actually on the 14th from this side going this way. This is the 14th cell, and if you come this way, this is the 14th cell. So either one of these cells it could go on. This is the one that it was on, so we'll put it back on this one. And then your last temperature sensor will be here, which we won't get to. The last temperature sensor is here on cell number 2. You can see it down here. So it's just testing that side of the block. Your middle one's testing this side, the middle of the block, and then your last one's testing the end of the block to show you the difference in temperatures. Okay, here's the new cell. We load tested it. Make sure that you load test all the new cells that you buy. All of them are used. Usually that you buy, try to buy from somebody that's reputable, that knows how to test them. So load test it. As long as it tests out good, you can put it in. This one was a 0.15 over 2-minute load, so it's about average. So we'll put this in, then we'll put the rest of these back in, and put the battery back together. Okay, one thing to remember when you're putting these in is these alternate negative, positive. So this needs to be negative, and just make sure all of your cells are negative, positive, negative, positive, negative, positive. It goes in series, and by doing it this way, you're connecting all these together. That's what builds your high voltage. So just check that as you're installing these to make sure that you have that right. If you go the wrong way, the battery's not going to work. Okay, we're at halfway You can see we're negative, positive, all the way. This is number 15. This is where the temperature sensor was. So you can see the spot that it goes. It's got little clips, and it just snaps in those little clips. And that's what holds it on. And then you can see how these fit together. There's little dimples here and little nipples here, and then these are angled, so there's flat spots that it goes on. So just make sure as you're putting this back together that you get those together. You don't have any big gaps through here. Get these together, that way when you get to the end you'll be able to compress these. Okay, as you can see, I've got this back together. Sometimes when you get to the end, you may have to push this together and lift the end of this battery up to get this white piece to sit flush, and then it lowers down onto here. But you got to push these together so they don't slip out, and they'll lock together. Just lift it up slightly, get it down, and then as you can see, it needs to sit down over the top of these little deals. Now we're ready to put the bars back on, bolt it back together, and we'll need to line this up, make sure this is lined up with the holes at the bottom. So before we get it all bolted back together tight, we'll want to put our bolts in the bottom loose until we get them all in, and then we can tighten everything up at once. Okay, we got our bars back on, all of our bolts are in here and here. We'll leave them loose for now, and we're going to go ahead under here and we're going to start putting these bolts back in. As you can see, our last one's still in, so it's every other one. You can see where the old ones went. So sometimes you have to put a little screwdriver or pick in there to get these to slide one way or the other. Usually they're pretty close. And that's every other one. We'll do this side and then we'll do the other side.